Instead of a golden retriever or a tabby cat, imagine bringing home a wild, water-obsessed creature from the flooded marshes of the Middle East. That is the premise of Mijbil the Otter, written by Gavin Maxwell. Maxwell lived in a cottage in Camusfirna in the West Highlands of Scotland. Because his home was surrounded by water, it offered a suitable environment for an aquatic animal. The decision to adopt an otter was driven by loss. Maxwell's dog Johnny had recently died, leaving a void that made the prospect of owning another dog too painful. He needed companionship, but he wanted something different. Grief frequently leads us toward unconventional choices as we try to fill the silence left behind by a longtime companion. The story begins in 1956, when Maxwell travels to Basra, Iraq, to collect his mail. While there, a friend mentions that otters are as common as mosquitoes in the Tigris marshes and are often tamed by the local Arabs. Shortly after, two Arabs arrive at the consulate general carrying a squirming sack. Inside is an otter, though Maxwell can't tell yet. The creature is completely encased in thick, chocolate-colored mud. It took a full month of steady, daily cleaning to remove the thick layers of mud from the energetic animal. When the work was finished, Maxwell discovered he had a rare creature that was previously unknown to the scientific community. Zoologists eventually christened the species Lutrogale perspicillata maxwelli. In simpler terms, it became known as Maxwell's otter. Bringing a wild animal into a domestic setting is a significant undertaking, testing a person's ability to provide care for a creature with no blueprint for behavior. For the first 24 hours, Mijbil was indifferent. He was neither hostile nor friendly. He simply kept his distance, choosing to sleep on the floor as far from Maxwell's bed as possible. On the second night, Mijbil climbed onto bed in the early hours of the morning. He settled into the crook of Maxwell's knees and stayed there until the servant brought tea at dawn. Maxwell soon learned that for an otter, every drop of water must be extended and spread about the place. In the bathtub, Mijbil would plunge and roll, creating enough of a splash for a much larger animal. Static water was to him a waste. Mijbil also demonstrated a unique intelligence in his play. He would lie on his back and juggle small marbles between his paws, rolling them up and down his flat belly without ever letting one fall to the floor. Successful care for an exotic pet requires observing these natural instincts, rather than suppressing them. The difficulty increased when it came time to return to Scotland. British Airlines refused to carry animals, so Maxwell booked a flight to Paris on a different carrier, intending to catch a connection to London from there. The airline insisted that Mijbil be placed in a box no more than 18 inches square, to be kept on the floor at Maxwell's feet during the journey. Just before leaving for the airport, Maxwell discovered that Mijbil had tried to chew his way out. The otter had torn the metal lining of the box to shreds and was bleeding from the effort. With the plane waiting to take off, Maxwell had to put the frightened otter back into the box. He rushed through the streets of Basra and was hurried onto the aircraft by frustrated officials. Maxwell explained the situation to the air hostess, whom he later described as the very queen of her kind. She understood the stress the animal was under and suggested Maxwell keep the otter on his knee. When the box was opened, Mijbil disappeared instantly. He vanished under the seats, causing a passenger to scream that there was a rat on board. Maxwell ended up with a face full of curry while trying to retrieve his pet from under a woman's feet. Eventually, Mijbil returned to Maxwell's lap, nuzzling his neck. Even in a high-stress environment like a crowded airplane, the otter recognized his owner as a source of safety. Maxwell and Mijbil eventually reached London, a city of high-rises and heavy traffic that stood in sharp contrast to the Iraqi marshes. Mijbil adapted to apartment life by inventing his own games. He discovered that a ping-pong ball placed on the high end of a sloped suitcase would roll to the bottom, allowing him to dash around and ambush it. On their daily walks, Mijbil developed rigid habits. He insisted on touching every seventh upright of the iron railings and stepping onto the center of every paving stone, much like a schoolchild following a self-imposed rule. Because otters were a rare sight in London, Maxwell faced constant questions. Passers-by guessed the creature was a baby seal, a squirrel, a walrus, or even a bear cub. These interactions show how an animal's personality remains distinct, even when it is forced to navigate a human world. This account documents the specific daily effort required to bridge the gap between two very different species. Mijbil's story shows that animals possess their own logic, their own sense of fun, and a clear capacity for recognition and affection. Responsible ownership means meeting an animal on its own terms. It is a chaotic and often difficult commitment, but one that offers a rare perspective on a life very different from our own.